2.2 reflections notes. So the first thing we want to do is go grab our highlighter. And that's important because what we're going to use that in figuring out and making sure we do the right reflection. You also want some graph paper. So I've got mine here. So if you need to pause, go grab that. Now, when we graph these, so what we want to do is first we're going to graph this point. Now I like to graph, we're going to graph some time. Nice. I love graphing time. So we're going to plot 4, 1 and mark that. Remember, we always label it as we plot it. So we plot, label, so that as we're thinking about that T point, we're plotting that point and labeling it so we don't mix up our letters. Otherwise, we're going to get the wrong answer. All right, 4, 3 is I. M is 6. 2, 4, 6. 3 is M. And 6, 1 is E. So we've got, I'm going to connect, and we've got our, it looks like a square. And that is our original. So now what we're going to do is reflect it. Now I'm going to grab my color pencil too, because I like to use a colored pencil for the image. And that's going to be here. So I'm going to set up my structure, T, I, M, E. And remember, these need to have primes because the image, the prime will show us that's the image of the original. So I'm going to structure setting all this up with the coordinate pairs, commas, and then now this is the important, and this helps us really get the right answer. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and I highlight the axes up here in the directions. So after writing down the reflection across the x-axis, we want to highlight the x-axis, because when we highlight the axis, what it does is it really focuses our attention on where the paper is going to have to fold. So if you have a piece of graph paper, you can fold it right on that x-axis. And sometimes labeling it X also helps us know which one it is for this x-axis. I like the highlighter because it doesn't get away in my counting, but it really draws my eye that this T has to be, if I fold it, it's going to see how it's 1 unit away from the x-axis. So it's going to be plotted 1 unit away on the other side. So that we're going to label that T prime. Now, E, well, I'm going to go around to I. I is how far away? It is 3 units away. So it's going to be on the fold, if we fold that graph up, it's going to be 3 units away, and that's going to be the I prime. E is 1 unit, so that's going to be here, 1 unit down because it's away from that fold. M is 3 units away, so I'll count 3 units this way. So sometimes what I've seen students do is they start at the M and they've got the fold here, so they count 1, 2, 3, and then count 1, 2, 3. So it's going all the way to the other side. So M prime. And then this is our image. And we can see when we fold, what's kind of a neat way is if you are able to do it on a piece of paper, you fold it up and the T matches with the T. These 2 points match right exactly. The E, you kind of have to open it, close it, open it, close it, open it, close it, and check each one. Like M will match up with this M prime, and I will match up with I prime. Now, what happens sometimes is that we get we get into our translations. We've got translations on our head. So we think about translations. So sometimes if we labeled this top T I and this E would be M, so like I M, T I M E in the same order as that, that's a translation that we've moved it down 1, 2, 3, 4 units, or T down 1, 2, 3, 4 units if we labeled this T. So that's why you want to label it as you plot it so that, well, I'm reflecting the I down like 3 away from my reflection. Then I'm going to go 3 down, and then I can label that so that matches these points here. So I'm going to write those coordinate pairs. T is 4, -1. I is 4, -3. M is 4, -3. No, 6, -3. And E is 6, -1. Now, there is a rule for this. If you notice the change from the original in black to the pink or colorful one, the colored pencil one, there is a rule, but if you are starting in a different quadrant, and you reflect across a different one, the rule is a little bit different. So that's why I like to really use that highlighter. All right, let's try another one. Now, they do get kind of tricky, so I'm going to grab my regular pencil and graph the figure CAT. I'm going to graph cat on the coordinate grid and reflect it in the y-axis. What are the coordinates of the image? So the image, remember, will be CAT. That's the image with our primes to show that it's the image. And I'm going to put my coordinate pairs in just to kind of help me organize my thinking. So I need coordinate pairs for each of those. Okay, so I'm going to plot cat, my original. So -3, -1, and label it. Remember, we have to label it right when we plot it. A is -3, -4, so 2, 4, CA, and T is -2, -4, -2. Oh, yeah, it's right there. So that's CAT. So it was a little tricky, but I had to recount. I thought it was going to be over here, but it wasn't. It was -2. I was I know what I was thinking. I was thinking -2, -4, but it's -4 first, which is the X, and then -2. So we've got our triangle. So now I'm going to switch. Wait a minute. Before I switch, I want to grab my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight which axes. So I love this because it helps me think, okay, y-axis, and the y-axis is not, this is the X, this is the Y. So do you see how the most common mistake is to put this image up here, which would reflect across the X-axis. So a lot of people who don't use the highlighting, they will get them mixed up. Not a lot, but like some, a good portion will. And I want you to get the right answer every single time. So the highlighter will help you. I'm going to redraw that one. So just highlighting that across. So that means my cat has to go over here. So now when I reflect it, point C is 1, 2, 3 units away. So it'll be 1, 2, 3 units over here. And I will label it C prime. Now, A is 3 units also. So 1, 2, 3. That's my A. prime. Now, I learned from my over here to kind of put my letters a little bit different places. So T is the tricky one because you have to go across the other ones. But I'm going to go straight to my y-axis where I have to reflect. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is my T prime. So my triangle, my cat triangle, is now reflected across the y-axis. And I'm going to get my points now. So 3, -1. A is 3, -2, 4. And T is +4, -2. I could have thought about my negatives and positives. So this is in the, which quadrant? Fourth quadrant, because this is the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. And in the fourth quadrant, all our numbers are, x's are positive because we go over to the right, and all the y's are negative. So I could have thought about that up here and just put my negative, 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 because I know that figure or that image is in that quadrant. So the y's are all negative. So did I reflect across the y-axis? And I can take my paper and fold it up into that, and those two should match. Notice that my kind of T point is outside, so my T point is on the outside, which tells me that it's the perfect reflection. And that's how we reflect, using our highlighter to help us get the right answer, and those counting to the axes to help us reflect it across the correct axes.